Dream big, people of God. Dream big. Remember why? I need to admit that I tweaked the words of Psalm 126 for today's call to worship. Tweaked them a little bit so the words aren't exactly the words that were in the Bible, but I don't think I messed with the meaning. I think the meaning is still there in that call to worship. Dream big, people of God. Dream big. You remember why? Anybody here like to do some daydreaming from time to time? You dream about this, you dream about that, and make-believe is kind of fun. It's a way to pass some time. Anybody here ever dream about winning the big lottery? Win that lottery, it'd sort of be your ticket to the good life. You'd have vacations and fancy cars and fancy homes and whatever it is that kicks your starter. You'd have the money to do it. We fantasize about things like that. We dream about things like that. And some of our wishful thinking is about other things too. We yearn for what used to be, back when we were young and healthy, back when the church was full of families, when the women were strong and the men were good looking and all the children were above average. Called Harrison Keeler's Lake Wobegon. Some of you apparently know about Lake Wobegon, which in some ways was kind of this fantasy world that we dream about and yearn for and hope for, the kind of place that it used to be. According to Garrison Keeler, Lake Wobegon exists in Minnesota, that place where the paper map is all folded up and the print wears off from the fold. So you look really hard, you can't ever quite find it on the map, but it's right there in that folded place on the old paper maps we don't use anymore because we have GPSs and such. Dream big, people of God. Dream big. Why? What difference will it make? We have dreamed before, you and I, and we've maybe even dreamed big, but not much has happened, not much has changed, nothing has happened in quite the way we wanted it to happen. Nonetheless, Psalm 126 says to us, dream big, people of God. Dream big because God is getting ready to act. God is getting ready to do something amazing. God is getting ready to do something impossible. God is getting ready to do something you can't even imagine. Dream your best dreams, people of God, because God's getting ready to do something one bigger than that. Dream of healing, dream of liberation, dream of freedom, dream of health, dream of abundance, dream of bounty, dream of loving and being loved, dream of community and family, dream about restoration and wholeness. Dream your best dreams, people of God, because God's getting ready to do one bigger than that, even when common sense says otherwise. The people who heard Isaiah's message were captives in Babylon, and there's no way back from Babylon. There's no way back from this captivity. The people were broken in every way it was possible for people to be broken. And at this point in his ministry, Isaiah has the unenviable task of trying to keep hope alive when there is absolutely no evidence for any reason to even try to think about the possibility of maybe hoping. That's how far down they are. And maybe you know something about that. Maybe you know about trying to hold things together for your family, hoping that somehow something will change. Maybe you try to hold things together for your marriage, hoping that somehow something will happen to make it right. Maybe you try to hold things together for your church, hoping that somehow something will happen somewhere along the way. Isaiah speaks into that kind of context. Isaiah invites the people, these hostage people, these captive people far away in Babylon, to remember their history. Remember people way back when. Remember when there was no way out of Egypt. Remember when there was no way out of the land of slavery. Their chariots and their horses could run faster than you could run. The mighty water of the Red Sea is a boundary you cannot cross. You're trapped and you're pursued. Your attempt to escape is doomed. Remember that, people of God? Remember that? Remember what God did? Remember how God makes a way in the sea, how God makes a path in the mighty water. God made a way, God made a path, and you made it across, people of God. Remember that? And your pursuers, what happened to them? Lured by the way, lured by the path that God made, they rushed in after you, and God pulled the plug. Remember that? Remember that? Remember that because, once again, there is no way out of this place where you are. And even if there were a way out, there's no place to go. Beyond the boundary defined by your captivity is only a brutal desert. And this homeland you remember so fondly only exists now in your imagination. Physically and emotionally and socially and spiritually, it was destroyed. It was completely dismantled by the enemy who took you hostage. So beyond the brutal desert, there is no homeland to return to. So there is no way to nowhere. There's nothing even to dream about. But what did God say through Isaiah? Remember the text? What did Isaiah report? Isaiah said, God said, forget about what I did the last time. This time is even bigger than that. I will make a way in the wilderness. I will make a path where there is no path. I will make water where there is only desert. Rivers of water for everyone and everything. Rivers of water for my chosen people. Do you see it, God asks? Dream big, people of God. And so it happened. It was not, however, a walk in the park. The trek back to the homeland was a hard trek. The homeland demanded some hard rebuilding, and there were new enemies to hamper them at every step of the way. Sowing the seed of their new life, to pick up again that theme from Psalm 126, sowing the seeds of their new life would be bathed and watered by tears. The call to worship from Psalm 126 tells exactly the truth about what it takes. What it takes for the big dreams that God inspires to become real for the people of God. There is no magic here. There are no silver bullets. God's dreams do not drop down out of heaven, fully formed and ready to go, already accomplished. There are always rivers to cross. There is always a wilderness to be endured. There are always ruins to be rebuilt. Sowing the seed of God's dreams often includes tears and trials, and it always includes sweat. That's how it is. Sometimes it includes some discarding, too. Big dreams, these big dreams that God invites us to dream, these big dreams take up a lot of space. You have to have room for them in your life, room for them in your community, room for them in the place where they're going to be fulfilled. Ask St. Paul about that. That's what was going on in that reading that we heard from Philippians. When it comes to religion, when it comes to piety, when it comes to practice, you couldn't dream of anybody better than St. Paul. He was born right. He was trained right. He practiced with the zeal of a champion. Then something bigger came along. Something that seemed to him of surpassing worth. And we heard what he wrote. He said, whatever gain I had, these I have come to regard as loss because of Christ. For Christ's sake, I have suffered the loss of all things. I regard it all as rubbish, he said, in order that I may gain Christ. Now, whether you agree with him or not, and not everybody does, there's this whole supersessionist thing going on here that not everybody is comfortable with. But whether you agree with him or not, he illustrates the point. And he illustrates the point well. Sometimes before that big dream can grow, you've got to get rid of some rubbish. The rubbish of the small dreams have to be cleared out of the way. You dream maybe of a more noble life. You dream maybe of a more faithful life. You dream of a relationship with Christ that surpasses anything you know right now. What kind of rubbish you have to get out of the way? What kind of rubbish has to go? And this dream church that I hear people talk about every now and again, the way from here to there is a way that only God can make, but it will cost. It will cost blood and sweat and tears, and a lot of rubbish has to go into the dumpster. Anybody here ready to pay that price so that God's big dream can grow? Is Christ worth that much? Is Christ worth that much? Ask Mary. This is Mary, the sister to Martha, Mary, the sister to Lazarus. And their home is the place where Jesus often comes for hospitality and friendship. And today is no exception. Today, Jesus and the disciples have all come, and they are there. And Martha is serving them dinner, and Lazarus is sitting at table with the guests. And what did Mary do? You remember the story. She broke open that large vial of very costly perfume. She anointed Jesus' feet with the whole thing. She wiped his feet with her hair, and storyteller John says that the fragrance of that perfume filled the entire house. It was costly. It was extravagant. If it was used otherwise, it could feed a poor family for a year. That 300 denarii was sort of the minimum wage for a year. It could feed a poor family for an entire year. And that's what Judas said. He found fault with this lavish expression. And also, by the way, Gospel writer John says, cut into the pot that Judas used to steal from. But that's a whole different story. It doesn't matter so much for today. The expression was lavish. The expression was costly. But then every expression of love can be faulted the same way. Why didn't you use the money to feed the poor? Why didn't you use the money to do something else? A dozen roses cuts into the grocery budget. That diamond ring empties out the savings account. A nice dinner date is going to add to the credit card balance. No reasonable person would do any of those things, would they? No reasonable person would expect any of those things, would they? And frankly, there are times when such things ought not be done. And yet, you all know what I mean. So to show her love for Jesus, Mary pours it all out. Show her love for Jesus. She pours it all out. She fills the whole house with fragrance. Perhaps, maybe because Jesus was at the center of a big dream she was beginning to sense. Where death had created a dead end with the death of her brother Lazarus, Jesus made a way back into life. Where death had ended the dreams, Jesus made dreams possible again. Doesn't that warrant a bit of extravagance? Doesn't that warrant maybe even costly extravagance? Was the extravagance worth it? Mary would have had no way of knowing just then, but we know what happened within the week. We know that with the smell of that perfume still on Jesus' feet, he is arrested and tried and crucified. And on the third day, God raised him to life. Where there was no way, because death had ended it. Where there was no way, because the great big stone was rolled over the door of the tomb. Where there was no way, God made a way. And Mary and Martha would find him again. And Peter and John, maybe even Judas. And generations of people down through the years. And you and I too, because God made a way where there was no way. We found our way to Christ. We found our way to new life. We found our way to something more than we could dream up by ourselves. So dream on, people of God. Dream big as you wait for God to act. Dream big as you haul out the rubbish and make room. Dream big as you prepare to offer yourself in deep love and in deep devotion. Dream big, people of God. Dream big. Let us pray. Stir us up to offer you, O Lord, our bodies and our souls and our spirits and our dreams and our hopes and our aspirations, our very selves as a gift of love and devotion. Fill us then with the dreams and the hopes you have for us, the dreams and the hopes that find their fulfillment